Good morning, everybody. We're back. This is John Delarose. I'm the author of For Steam and Country and Gravity of the Game, the recent baseball and space novella. Check it out. My stuff is very much influenced by comics in the way that I write and do scenes and get actions going. So if you like comics, you'll probably enjoy my books. I'm eventually going to get back into writing comics. I've started writing comics, but I'll get back into producing comics. We're going to work on ways to do that shortly, and then we'll be getting some good content of new material that's not just rehashes or SJW versions of the old here. But what brings us here today, family, is the recent news this morning that Brian Michael Bendis, the long time Marvel writer, I mean, gosh, how long's he been with Marvel now? I mean, he's had to have been there since I was in high school almost. He's for those who aren't familiar with the comics industry so much, Brian Michael Bendis has been kind of the superstar of Marvel Comics. He kind of came out of the indie scene. He was a big indie guy. He had a book called Jinx, which he drew himself, which people liked a lot. Then he did his own superhero take, which was called Powers, which was a very unique superhero take at the time. It didn't age well, in my opinion. It went a little over the top in gore and sexual content, and just things that early 2000s, late 90s writers did to try to make themselves edgy, right? And it worked for a little bit, and the characters were all right. And you know, Bendis actually as a writer, I don't want to hate on Bendis too much. I mean, I dislike his politics a lot, and he's very vocal, just like every Marvel writer is. But Bendis actually has a really interesting quality to him in terms of what he does, and he's got really good ideas. And he comes out with these ideas frequently and often. Like every idea that he hit on, like the Powers idea was a good idea. Takio, that Asian girl comic, Girl Power, yay, actually had decent ideas to it. The Jessica Jones book, I don't even remember the name of it at the time. It wasn't called Jessica Jones at the time. It was called something else in the Max universe. I mean, it had a good idea and a solid foundational idea to it. When he launched New Avengers, that had a solid idea to it. His Ultimates universe, where he created a much more realistic, edgier, cinematic style Avengers, great idea to it. Same with Ultimate Spider-Man. The original Ultimate Spider-Man, people forget, but that actually for the first 20-30 issues was pretty solid. So Bendis has traditionally come up with good ideas, and he is the ultimate reason. At the same time, his style of the huge decompressed arcs that just go on and on and on and on and on, and you might have issue 1 of Spider-Man brushing his teeth and then looking out the window, and at the very end of the issue there's a bad guy out there and he goes, oh my gosh, I better go out and fight. The end. That sort of decompressed comics, he's not the only one who did that. I mean, the graphic novel has been around for a while, but his style is so decompressed that you really don't get a story in an issue whatsoever. I mean, you really want to read Brian Michael Bendis in trade if you're going to. And what invariably happens, because he's so decompressed, his stories lose focus and they kind of blur, and then the next idea blurs into it, and they don't quite finish, they don't quite resolve, they just kind of blur together. And that's his weakness as a storyteller. He doesn't really have a good arc from start to finish. He has the great idea, and the great idea is always intriguing, and I go, ooh, Brian Michael Bendis has a cool idea every single time. I think he's great at it. I actually met him once at San Diego Comic-Con 2012, and I was just getting my writing chops together at the time, and I've talked to him a little bit, but he was on a panel, and I was like, dude, how do you do this? How do you get 4 or 5 comics a month going like this, and do it? And he was like, dude, you just asked me, where do ideas come from? Which as a writer, I mean, you can't really say they just happen. So that he's an ideas guy. He's good at it. He writes really good witty banter dialogue. I call it witty banter dialogue. He doesn't write good characters, but he writes good witty banter. And this is something Joss Whedon does as well. It's kind of a trend that they kind of developed at the same time. But what I mean by witty banter is they'll have Jessica Jones going back and forth with Squirrel Girl or something. It'll say something clever and funny that kind of is like a meta commentary on the superhero or whatever they're doing at the time, and it's just kind of clever and funny. I don't have a good example of it right now because I'm sitting in my car and I sold all my Brian Michael Bendis comics a long time ago. But he's really good with the witty banter, and he's really good with ideas. That's Brian Michael Bendis' strong suit, right? And his weak point, as I said, is his stories just go on and on. They drag out. They're super decompressed, and they don't finish. So that's it. But Brian Michael Bendis has another weakness. And Brian Michael Bendis might be the person solely and first responsible for turning Marvel into an SJW fest. If you look at his entire trend over his career, he has done everything by trying to do the virtue signal for the SJWs. Now, he does it. Now, because Brian's got good idea talent and good witty banter talent, he doesn't come across as ham-fisted and awful as his successors in Marvel. But you got to keep in mind the successors in Marvel now are writing to mimic Brian Michael Bendis. So if you're writing to mimic Brian Michael Bendis, you're going to have a degree of even less good at that point. But Bendis with it, like, I mean, he's just always done it. He's always tried to like shoehorn the gay this or in there, or he's tried to, tried to replace a hero with a black hero, or he's tried to, like Takio. The whole point of Takio was, we don't have enough Asian Americans in comics, so we're going to have Asian girls superheroes because strong female leads are needed too. That was the whole point of that. And while I didn't mind that comic, I thought it was all right. This is just his trend. He always inserts this. He created the Miles Morales half black, half Hispanic Spider-Man after calling for, I believe, is it Danny Glover or Donald Glover? I forget which Glover it is. The one from Community, the funny guy, to be Spider-Man for a long time. He created the Black Nick Fury image that became Samuel L. Jackson, which was good. I mean, Samuel L. Jackson did a great job, but he didn't just do it once. He did it over and over and over and over again in comics. And if you look at the course of his career, he was the first person in Marvel really to start pushing that gimmick message, the gimmick diversity, the gimmick problem, so that Marvel can get into Fox News and say, on their little byline and say, oh my gosh, they have a black Spider-Man now, so that they get that quick sales boost that doesn't last. So he started the trend in that, which, I mean, to be fair, Marvel beyond him has been all about the gimmick real quick in order to get sales. But over time, Brian Michael Bendis exerted his influence over the company. If you look at the big events that they did, the event fatigue, it all came from his house of ideas. He was the House of M onus that was going to reshape and redo everything. It's going to change. And he started getting that whole trend going in Marvel. All these trends are due to Brian Michael Bendis. Now, Marvel has gone so far into the tilt where everybody's a clone of Brian Michael Bendis' style that it's unreadable. And we've known this for a while. Everybody at Marvel now wants to be Brian Michael Bendis. They don't do it right. They have less idea talent than him. And so they're doing his social elements without the idea talent. And it's destroyed all their books, right? So that's where Marvel's at. And so Brian Michael Bendis is very smart here, because he sees from his perspective that my sales are dragging, nobody's buying Marvel, Marvel's causing problems, and so I'm going to lose more by staying with Marvel than I am going to be with being with Marvel. DC probably offered him some dang good money, and so he's coming over. So this is a jump ship moment for Marvel. What it means for Marvel is that Marvel is so far converged, and it's his fault. He started the convergence, but this happens with SJWs. They like to move organizations and then repeat themselves into the next organizations. So Marvel's gone so far converged that it is irreparable. It's a disaster. It's not coming back. And so Bendis sees that writing on the wall, and he's going, I'm out. So what that's going to do to Marvel is it further decreases their talent pool. Quesada is definitely, because Quesada did do the hiring, but Bendis had Quesada's ear the whole time. If you look at the directions that Quesada did things, it's a teamwork thing. But yeah, Quesada definitely started it along this path, handed the reins over to Axel Alonso, and Axel Alonso is again, it just goes from that, Quesada, again, had talent as an artist, had some bad ideas, but, because of his talent, he was able to make things go. Alonso is a Quesada disciple, and so he doesn't have quite the talent, and is pushing the social end of things, thinking that's what made Quesada great, even though that was like his flaw. So we've gone from a generation where there's the little bit of the social things to now we've only got the social things and no talent, right? And that's where Marvel's at. And Brian Michael Bendis knows this, so he's gone. So on DC's front, DC, everybody talks about DC as if it's like the salvation of comics right now. You are wrong. You're 100% wrong. DC has a couple good titles and then a bunch of titles that are just garbage. Okay? So you look at Mr. Miracle and you go, this is interesting, different storytelling. You look at Batman and say, this is interesting, different storytelling. It's pretty cool. You look at The Flash and go, it's not that bad. But for every one of those, there is an SJW DC comic also. So DC is not all the way converged yet, but they still got Jim Lee trying to push good quality books, and they're smart enough to know, okay, we got to pay for good art to compete with Marvel. So they've hired better artists, and they've hired the good artists out from under Marvel. But at the end of the day, they're still following the decompressed sort of model, which makes the pamphlets kind of unreadable. They're still following the social justice trends in Batwoman. Detective Comics is Batwoman's team book. I mean, it is the direction we can expect DC to go over the next 10 years. So if you look at Detective Comics, the whole point is the name, Detective Comics, right? You're supposed to be following a sort of noir detective thriller that's kind of dark. You expect Batman. That's what you expect out of Detective Comics, and I've talked about this before. But instead, they twisted it, and now it's Batwoman's team book because we wanted to give the lesbian woman a superhero team that's under her command so that we can show how diverse we are. That's exactly what the book is. It's not good. And it goes against the original intent of what the book title is supposed to be. It used to be Batman's main book, correct? And changing that over to Batwoman's team book, one, it dupes customers for a second because we go in there and we go, cool, Detective Comics, I've seen this, gonna buy it, and then we check it out and go, what? Why? I didn't buy this for this. And so it is a duping technique. Instead of just making a team book for Batwoman, they have converged Detective Comics, sadly, and made it into a thing that's not so good. Now, the art quality is still much higher than Marvel in it. They're still not skimping on the art quality because Jim Lee's in charge. So we'll see how that goes on that front, but which I appreciate. But again, DC's only got a couple good books as it is, and people are hailing it as something a lot better than it actually is. Batwoman is not good. Batgirl's not good. Detective Comics isn't good. You've got Batman, which is honestly like the storytelling in Batman is okay. It's not fabulous, but I mean, Greg Capullo is just a great artist, so he carries it. And so I think that you'll see a little more of this trend going through DC. I don't know what book Brian Michael Bendis is going to be on, but whatever he's going to be on is going to start off with a great idea that's going to look cool. It's going to have some sales right away because there's going to be some buzz around it. They'll put a really good artist on him for the first arc, and then it's going to go downhill. So what's going to happen is as Brian Michael Bendis floats through his ideas and it decompresses and kind of muddies through multiple ideas, he's going to start with the SJW trends and he's going to push that onto DC Comics. Now he's probably got a big contract, and so what he's going to do is he's going to get together with a group of writers, and whatever event that Brian Michael Bendis goes into with whatever team of writers they go into is going to cause the DC convergence. So you just need one SJW in the organization, because what happens is every time you get an SJW in an organization, they bring over their SJW friends, and whoever made this decision is bringing over their SJW friend Brian Michael Bendis. Let's make no mistake. They're doing it as a tactical thing right now because they're saying we can take Marvel's only good writer talent and suck all the money out of the room. We can suck all the momentum that they've got out of the room, and they're succeeding in doing that. And from a short-term perspective, that is a tactically good thing. I mean, DC just has solidified that they are going to be crushing Marvel Comics in the near term because Marvel's got nothing at this point. They've got zero. They don't even have their flagship guy, right? But over the long term, Brian Michael Bendis is going to do to DC what he's done to Marvel, which is just create a muddied event mess and bring the social justice element to the forefront of Marvel Comics. Now, he might not be the one pushing it all the way himself, but his disciples, his friends that he brings over time, are going to be the ones who do this. So it's going to end up destroying DC. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry to say this. DC is converged. They have their couple tokens. They got the Ethan Van, whatever his name is, who's the artist. But he's the respectable conservative, right? So he's kind of like that moderate guy. So they can trot him out and say, look, we don't blackball. So they've got that, and at least they are doing that. I mean, that to DC's credit, they care slightly more than Marvel in that regard, right? And they've still got Chuck Dixon, right? So Chuck Dixon still got his Bane Conquest. Bane Conquest is fun, but DC put an artist who's not so great on that book. It's unfortunate because you could have a pretty fun book there. I'm enjoying it, but it could be better. So you have alternatives. Yes, somebody mentioned Castalia House Comics. Vox is going to be putting out Alt Hero. Chuck Dixon's putting out Avalon, which is going to be better than any work he's done in years through them. It's going to be great. And that's really going to be our salvation for the future. I'm going to be putting out my own comics. I was looking at Flying Sparks and redoing that for a bit. When I wrote that book, I was not as good of a writer as I am now. I've looked at it. The quality's a bit lower than I would have liked. The art's really good. But honestly, I didn't do a great job there. It was some of my first writing. I could probably tweak the dialogue and make it acceptable at this point, but it's not going to be my best work when it comes out. I might be able to finish it and make a decent story out of it still. But that's not quite there. But I'm working on new comics. I'm a better writer now, and we'll have some cool ideas coming down the pipe there. I also suggest Valiant Comics. Valiant Comics has Exo Manowar. Exo Manowar is a great book. It's a man's book. It is Conan the Barbarian in space. If you're not reading it, I don't know why you're watching me at this point, because I tell you to read it every week. It's great. Bloodshot Salvation's okay. It's got little social justice-y elements. It's not too bad. It's all right. I don't know what their new books are going to be like. Obviously, I don't read Faith in the Future Force. I mean, that's their social justice title in a nutshell. But they're all right. They're not all the way there. But Exo Manowar, you can read Exo Manowar without following the rest of their universe. Just read that. It's worth it. But that's I'd go there and kind of start dropping your DC books a little bit. Alterna Comics, everybody's really hype on Alterna Comics. They're just doing newsprint style. They're just getting the books out cheap. They're doing cool concepts. They're just having fun, from what I could tell. So they are a good alternative where I think we might see some good future content come out of. I'm going to start picking up a couple of their books. I grabbed Lilith Dark. I liked it a little bit. So I'm going to be watching them, and if there's something great out of there, I'll bring it by for your attention. But DC is on its way downhill. I mean, Brian Michael Bendis is going to write 3-4 books. He's going to suck energy out of the room. He's going to bring a couple of his friends over, and you're going to start to see DC go kind of the way of Marvel a little bit. I mean, I trust in Jim Lee a little bit. He's still putting out some good stuff. I mean, we got Batman White Knight. I just did a review. Go to my blog for my review. It's delarose.com of Batman Dark Prince Charming. You might have missed that book. You probably skipped it over. Read my review. It's pretty spoiler free. And I've got a couple links to the images in there. Batman, Dark Prince Charming, I recommend it. And Batman's all right. I'll probably keep reading the Tom King Batman. I think Mr. Miracle's overhyped, guys. I'm not gonna lie. I think it's all right, but I think you guys have been overhyping it. But DC really doesn't have great books. They just have good art on books that are making it look like it's better than Marvel by contrast. Remember, contrast is a big persuasion thing. You look at Marvel books, their art is so crap that you look at a DC book and you go, wow, the art's good, cool. And they don't really have much political content. Yeah, Batman is worse than Mr. Miracle. Hey there. So you do see, you've got that contrast blinders going on because the rest of the content coming out is so bad. But seriously, look over at Valiant, look over at Alterna Comics and just try it. Aquaman, I haven't checked it out. I read that Rich Johnston, Bleeding Cool article that said it was the bunch of Trump allegory. I don't know. People said that was overblown and that he was kind of making that up. But I don't, unfortunately, I know the comics industry and I know the people in here. And even if it's just like a little bit of Trump allegory, and it's not that bad. Because remember, people, again, are contrasting to Marvel. So they read it and they go, it's not that bad compared to Marvel. If that's the case, I don't know. I'm not really incentivized to pick it up, personally. So, I don't know. My stuff... Oh, The Tick. I'm really enjoying The Tick. The Tick came out with its first issue. It is... they're redoing it. Cullen Bunn's doing it. I mean... You know, he's a leftist guy, but you know, he's not a bad guy. And so I really liked The Tick. It's family friendly. I'm sick of dark stuff too, is the other thing. I want things to be happy again. I'm going to write a nice blog about why Frank Miller ruined Batman and why we need to you know, do a hard reboot of Batman. But at some point. But that's where it's at. So the reboot of The Tick is all right. Yeah, I've heard about Paul the Samurai. Yeah, My Little Pony's probably good. You know, that's not my thing, but it's probably a lot of my friends' thing. So they can do that. I heard Samurai Jack's all right. I mean, there's a lot of good alternatives out there, but really just start looking elsewhere. It's time. We've all gotten into the habit year after year after year of just buying a book because it says Spider-Man on it, so I'm going to buy it and I'm going to keep buying it. I'm talking to you, Douglas Ernst. If Douglas Ernst, somebody tag Douglas Ernst. I know, tag Douglas Ernst and say I am throwing shade at him in the Periscope. Will somebody do that for me? Please tag Douglas Ernst and tell him I'm throwing shade. I'm going to throw shade at Douglas Ernst. All right. I love this guy. Douglas Ernst is the best. Subscribe to his YouTube channel if you don't. But he reads Spider-Man month after month after month after month and just goes, it's so bad, it's so bad, it's so bad, right? But he never goes out and ventures and like grabs an X-O Manowar, and he never goes out and ventures and grabs something else. He's just always on the Marvel Comics talking about how bad it is. If you want to facilitate the change, you can read your Spider-Man stuff, but break that. Honestly, well, I'm saying break the habit. Break the habit, cut the cord, kill it. Brian Michael Bendis ruined it, ruined Marvel. All of his acolytes are now there, and it's not good, okay? Cut the cord, try something new, and let's tell our followers, because yeah, same with diversity in comics. They always love it because, and I know why they do it. I get it. I mean, they're smart because you shit on. I'm sorry to swear. I didn't mean to do that. But you throw shade at Marvel. Marvel's terrible. People click and they tune in, right? You do a book on Valiant and people don't give you as many clicks, right? I mean, I understand that. But at this point, these guys have audiences which are much bigger than mine. I've only got 10 people watching here, right? They've got audiences much bigger than mine. So if they just dedicate one review a week to something indie, to something Valiant, to something different, they will change the industry just because people will start to check those out. We have to, our habits for collecting Avengers, for Batman, for whatever, are decades old, and it is Marvel and DC's as a duopoly. They did this on purpose to get us into those habits. It was a psychological trick to get us into those habits, to follow those and not the actual creators who actually do good things. And so then they could replace the creators with whoever they wanted, which was just going to be their SJW friends at the end of the day. That is their trick, and that's how they get us. And we need to put a stop to that by breaking those habits and not just leaving the comic book shop, but actually trying out new things. I keep mentioning X-O Manowar. Anything by Matt Kindt is so good, and I love that guy. You guys really got to support him. He's good. And what else am I loving these days? Like I said, I like The Tick. Cullen Bunn's doing it. He seems like he's a good guy. He's been nice to me on Twitter. That's all I care about at this point. Stuff like that. Just find what you love, report it to us, and let's get going, because we don't need another Brian Michael Bendis converged company. It's not going to do good, and DC's already not as good as everybody's saying it is. So let's do it. Let's go out there. This is our mission. This is going to be our change. This is the only way to save the comics industry, is to go for the new content. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. I hope that was informative and fun. Please also check out For Steam and Country if you haven't already, and please leave a review. I'm trying to get my reviews. This is my selfish thing right now. I'm trying to get my reviews of For Steam and Country up higher than my first book, because it's my property versus somebody else's property, and it's just an ego thing that I really want, and it'd be really cool. Even if you just read a chapter, just be like, For Steam and Country is good steampunk. It is good steampunk. It's fun. There's no political message in it. It's what comics should be. I might make a comic out of it eventually. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and have a great day. And stay valiant, stay fun.